A worker wakes up before sunrise. They make coffee, fill the gas tank, drive to work, put in 8 hours, maybe 10. Their paycheck arrives exactly as expected. Nothing unusual happens. No emergency. No bad investment. No reckless spending spree. And yet, by the end of the year, that paycheck somehow buys less than it did before. The coffee costs more. The groceries cost more. The rent costs more. The insurance costs more. Even the fast food meal that once felt cheap now feels like a minor financial decision. Most people assume this is just how life works. Prices go up. That's normal. But imagine for a moment that someone quietly removed 2%, 3%, maybe even 5% of your money every year. Not from your bank account. Not from your wallet. From its purchasing power. You would probably call that a tax. The strange part is that this tax exists. Most people pay it. And almost nobody receives a bill. Because the largest tax many people will ever pay is one they never see. Inflation. Not the version politicians argue about. Not the version economists bury beneath charts and jargon. The real version. The one that follows you every day. The one hiding inside nearly every price tag you encounter. And once you understand how it works, it becomes difficult to unsee. The story begins with a simple question. What is money actually supposed to do? Most people think money exists to buy things. That's true. But money also serves another purpose. It stores value. If you work today and save part of your paycheck, you're effectively storing hours of your life for later. Money becomes a time capsule. You sacrifice time now, so your future self can benefit later. At least that's the deal. But inflation changes the deal. Imagine you hide $100 under your mattress. A year passes. The $100 is still there. Same bill. Same number. Nothing changed. Except everything changed. If prices rise 5%, your money can now buy 5% less. It's like owning an ice cube that slowly melts while looking exactly the same from a distance. And this is where things become interesting. Because inflation isn't always caused by greedy companies, or shortages, or supply chains. Sometimes those things matter. But there's a deeper mechanism operating underneath. One that most people never think about. The money supply. Imagine a small island with 100 apples and $100. Each apple costs $1. Simple. Now imagine the island suddenly has $200, but still only 100 apples. More money. Same number of goods. What happens? Prices rise? Not because apples became better. Not because farmers became greedy. Because there is simply more money chasing the same stuff. This concept sounds obvious inside a tiny island example. Yet it becomes strangely invisible when applied to entire economies. Especially modern ones. Because modern money doesn't always arrive as physical cash. Sometimes it appears through lending. Sometimes through government spending. Sometimes through central bank policies that sound so technical they almost seem designed to discourage further questions. During major crises, governments and central banks often inject enormous amounts of money into the financial system. The intention is usually reasonable. Prevent collapse. Support businesses. Keep people employed. Avoid panic. The problem is that newly created money doesn't affect everyone equally. And this is where the hidden tax becomes even more hidden. Imagine a stadium where one section receives free water before everyone else. By the time the water reaches the last rows, supplies are running low and prices have increased. The people closest to the source benefit first. Everyone else experiences the consequences later. Money often behaves similarly. New money enters specific parts of the economy first. Financial institutions, large corporations, government programs, asset markets. Meanwhile, ordinary consumers encounter the effects later through rising prices. This creates one of the strangest ironies in modern finance. The people working hardest to save money can sometimes be punished the most. A person who stores cash may believe they're being financially responsible, and they are. But if inflation consistently exceeds the growth of their savings, purchasing power quietly disappears. Year after year. Without any dramatic event. Without any headline announcing it. Without anyone physically taking the money. Consider a simple example. If inflation averages 3% annually, prices roughly double in about 24 years. That means something costing $10 today could cost $20 later. Not because the product became twice as useful. Not because reality changed. Because the measuring stick changed. Money itself changed. Now zoom out. Think about retirement. Think about college savings. Think about emergency funds. Think about entire generations trying to build wealth. Suddenly inflation is no longer a background statistic. It becomes a force shaping life decisions. This is why governments often target inflation rather than eliminate it. A little inflation is considered healthy. Too little can slow economic activity. Too much can become destructive. It's a balancing act. The challenge is that balance is easier to discuss than achieve. History is filled with examples where inflation escaped control. Prices rising faster than wages. Savings evaporating. Public trust weakening. People rushing to spend money before it loses even more value. At its extreme, inflation stops being an economic issue and becomes a social one. Because money only works when people trust it. Trust is the foundation. Everything else is built on top. And here's the uncomfortable reality. Most people focus intensely on earning more money. Far fewer focus on whether that money is retaining value. It's a bit like trying to fill a bathtub while ignoring a slow leak. The income matters. But so does the drain. The hidden tax isn't hidden because someone conceals a bill. It's hidden because it operates through prices. A few cents here. A few dollars there. Small changes spread across thousands of purchases. Too gradual to trigger alarm. Too persistent to ignore forever. Which brings us to the question that sits beneath everything. If your paycheck is measured in dollars, your savings are measured in dollars, and your future plans are measured in dollars. What happens when the value of the dollar itself becomes the thing that's constantly changing? Because maybe the most important financial question isn't how much money you have. Maybe it's how much of its value will still be there when you finally need it.